we want to look at the first question here on range and inverse of a function. So the question, find the range and inverse of the function f of x equal to x plus 1 all over x minus 1, and state whether it is one-to-one an onto function or not. Now, to solve this problem, it's pretty simple, okay? There's nothing difficult there. Now, remember that to get range, you should have gotten the inverse of the function. So first, we would get the inverse of the function. Alright, now to get the inverse of the function, what do? We are going to solve this equation by making x subject of the formula. Please take note, we'll start. This is f of x equal to, this f of x is the same as y. Is the same as what? Y. So write y equal to x plus 1 all over x minus 1. We'll make x subject of the formula. To make x subject of the formula here, what do? Look at it. The first thing you do is to cross multiply. Now this is y over 1. If you cross multiply, it will be y times this. That's y then bracket x minus 1 equal to 1 times x plus 1, which will give us x plus 1. Then if you open up this bracket, to make x subject to the formula, you must collect all x together and make sure that x is only 1 in this expression of this equation. So y times x will give us xy, then y times minus 1 will give us minus y equal to x plus 1. Remember what I just said, you must collect all x to one side and make sure that you have only one of the x here. So this x will come here, then if this x comes here, we are going to remove this y to the other side. They'll have x, this x crossing to meet this xy will become minus x. Then this minus y will go over there, you're going to get 1 plus y. Looking at this point, something is common to both of them. X, we have x here, we have x here, so we'll factorize. If you factorize, you're going to bring out the x that is common. If you remove x from here, y will be left. Put your minus. If you remove x from here, 1 will be left. That's how you get the term in bracket. It's like dividing xy by this x you factorized, and then dividing minus this x by this x that you factorized. And so 1 will be left here equal to 1 plus y. Now, in conclusion, if you look at it, making x subject to the formula, you divide here by the coefficient y minus 1. If you do that, let's see what you're going to get. We'll get that x is equal to y plus 1, or 1 plus y is your choice, divided by y minus 1. Now that you have made x subject of the formula, we will now change, is that okay, x to y and y to x. So here I will change this x to y, therefore y equal to, this y will now become x plus 1 all over, this y will become x minus 1. Remember that your y is the same as f of x, but in this case it is inverse. You have gotten the inverse because you made x subject to the formula. So this y, we will now write it as f of x inverse, or simply f inverse, is that okay? Is equal to x plus 1 over x minus 1. So this is the inverse of the function. It's from here that we'll now get the range. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the range and state whether it is one-to-one an onto function or not. Now, we want to get the range of this inverse of the function given to us. Is that okay? How do we get the range? Remember, we said that range is the same as domain. Range is the same as domain of your inverse function. So range will now be equal to, we've already worked with domain a lot, so even from here we can easily get our range. Exactly the way you got domains of function. Is that okay? For f of x, you get domain, like here, you get domain. But for f of x inverse, you get range. Now, for functions of this type, you know you have to set the denominator to 0 and then solve for x. Is that not so? If you do that, x minus 1 equal to 0, let's write, where will I do the rough work? Let me do it under here. If you do x minus 1 equal to 0, you get x to be equal to what? 1. And you know that once x is equal to 1, what it means is that the range is all real numbers, but not including x equal to 1. So write a range is equal to x such that x is element of a real number, but x is not equal to 1. So that is the range. Now we have to state if this function is one-to-one or a one-to-one and onto function or not. We are done with the range here. Now how can you get if it is one-to-one and onto function? You can quickly do by comparing what you got here. If you look at these two functions, are they not the same? This is x plus 1 over x minus 1. This is x plus 1 over x minus 1. So f of x is equal to f of x inverse. If f of x is equal to inverse of f of x, then the function is one-to-one and onto. Or you may decide to go and get the domain of this function. If you get the domain of this function, looking at it, is it not still the same as domain is equal to x, such that x is element of a real number not equal to 1? Is that okay? And so that is very simple. Of course, I don't even need to go and bother myself getting domain from here. Just looking at the functions, they are what? The same already. So I'll just come over here and say that f of x, the function given to us, is 1-to-1 and onto an onto function. Now, let me say this quickly before I leave the stage. Suppose this function is not exactly the same as this. If f inverse is not exactly the same as f of x, then the function is one-to-one, but it is not onto. Take note of that. You can put it down in writing. Now let's look at this second question on the board. It's past question 2018-2019, question number 29. If f, that is a function such that real number is assigned or mapped to real number, is given by f of x equal to x over 3 plus 1. Find the inverse of f. This is just something to have fun with, right? Let's be very fast in getting that. From the question, our f of x, which is y, is equal to x over 3, then plus 1. Recall what we said, that all you have to do is to make x subject to the formula, is that not so? So how do we make x subject to the formula here? This part, this is a fraction and a whole number. When you are adding or subtracting a fraction with a whole number or fraction, all you need to do is to find LCM. Is that okay? So this will give us y equal to LCM here is 3. So if I put my 3 here, it's going to be 3 divided by 3, which is 1. 1 times x, you have x here. This 1 is the same as divided by 1, you know that. 3 divided by 1 will give us what? 3. 3 times 1 will give us 3. The fastest thing to do here in LCM for this problem, assuming this one is not there, let's just remove that denominator of 1, is simply this denominator times this whole number. You're going to get 3, is that so? So now do x plus that 3 all over the denominator 3. Look at it. That's the fastest way of going through this to get the LCM term, alright? I just have to go through this process that most of us might be used to. So the next thing we do is to cross multiply to remove this fraction. We're going to have 3y equal to x plus 3. Then I will make x subject to the formula. It will be 3y minus 3 equal to x if this plus 3 crosses. Then look at this, what is common to them? You can leave your result like this, change x to y and then y to x, but we can still choose to factorize, nothing is wrong there. 3 is common, so you bring out the 3, this is y, this will be what? Minus 1 equal to x. So the next thing you need to do is change your y to x and your x to what? Y. Therefore, we're going to have 3 bracket x minus 1 equal to, so I've changed this y to x, then this x now to y. Alright, so this y is our f inverse now, is that okay? Equal to 3 bracket x minus 1. So this is our f inverse for this function. Once again, let me ask you, based on what we got here, this function, is it one-to-one and onto? No, it's not. Because if you look at this function here, it's not the same as what we got here. Alright, so this function is one-to-one, but it is not onto. Although we're not asked to find that here anyway. We have question number 3 on the board. Is an applied question, a word problem. A hotel charges 4,000 naira each night 4,000 naira for the first 2 nights, which means the first night 4,000, the second night also 4,000, which means 2 nights stay there is going to be what? 8,000 naira taken, and 1,500 naira for each additional night stay. After the first 2 nights, if the guest is to stay more than the first 2 nights, the guest is going to pay 1,500 naira for the additional night stay. The total cost C is a function of the number of nights X that the guest stays. Part A of the question: complete the expression in the following piecewise defined function. This is a piecewise defined function. Then find this: cost in 2 days, cost in 3 days, cost in 4 days. That's what it means. And then what do your answer in part B represent? Now let us solve this problem. Solution. I have a solution here. I'm going to fix the cost function here, and then the piecewise term at this point. Okay, now for the first case, you see the domain here. This is the domain. The domain was given to us. We now need to get the codomains. Once we get our codomains, the rest becomes 1 plus 1. And so what do we do? For the first distinct domain, 0 is less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 2. You know that this defines the number of nights, and that this value means 0, 1, 2. Now let me ask you, do we have 0 nights? 0 nights simply means that the guest has not even stayed in the hotel for 1 day. And so actually what we have here defines 2 days for us, day 1 and day 2. And now remember that from the beginning of the question, the hotel is said to charge 4,000 each night. Remember that the number of nights is represented by what? X. Which means the codomain here is going to be 4,000 each night times X. That goes with the domain 0 is less than or equal to X, less than or equal to what? 2. Then in the second part, the hotel charges extra 1,500 naira if the guest overstays 2 days. Let us say the guest stays more than 2 days. Now, how do you set up the codomain? For the guest to stay more than 2 days, it means that the guest had already stayed 2 days, which will cost how much you said. For 2 days, you have the range, the domain here. If you fix in 2 here, you're going to get 8,000 naira. So, if the guest is staying more than 2 days, it means that the guest must have paid for 2 days separately. Then from the third day now, he's paying 1,500 naira for each night. So that's going to be plus 1,500 naira times X. That is each night. Then remember, in this X represents the number of nights. You are meant to remove 2 days from it, the first 2 days, because the guest must have paid that 8,000 naira for that first 2 days. And so here we're going to do minus 2. That is minus 2 days from the number of nights. The 2 days represent the 8,000 naira here, which you paid. And then the range, that is the domain we have there, is x greater than what? 2. Now we have set up the piecewise function. You can solve the remaining cost function given to you to get B part. I'm going to get C2 cost in 2 days. So you locate the range is here. The cost in 2 days is 4,000x. And then you have your variable there, x is 2. So it's going to be 4,000 times 2, which will give us what? 8,000 naira in the first 2 days. Then let me jump to the cost in 4 days. You can do the cost in 3 days yourself. Cost in 4 days, where is the interval? There is the domain is here, greater than 2. 4 is greater than 2 is here. And the codomain is 8,000 naira plus 1,500 bracket x minus 2. And so if you fix in the value of your x, which is 4, you have 8,000 plus 1,500, then 4 minus 2. If you work out this, 4 minus 2 is 2. 2 times 1,500 is 3,000. 3,000 times 3,000 plus 8,000 is going to give us 11,000. So for 4 days, the guest will pay 11,000. You can do this yourself. But what do your answer in part B represent? Very simple. In part B, it simply represents the cost, the amount the guest will pay for 2 days, 3 days, and what? 4 days.